Thank you. I can't believe there are so many people that actually came out in this rain. It was crazy flying in here today. Where's that little clicker thing? Right here? Okay. So I'm not big on standing at podiums, but I guess I have to, don't I, because of the, okay, I will, I'll stand here. So first of all, I'm seeing a lot of faces that I know. And for those of you who are with the Miss Arkansas or Miss America organization, could you stand up, please? Thank you. Hey, you. You know, this is the heart and soul in 50 states in the District of Columbia of the Miss America program. It's not me, it's not Gretchen, it's not the judges, it's people like this in 50 states and DC who on the local level and on the state level give of their time to make Miss America what it is. And we are very, very grateful. I'm very, very grateful. You know, I was a kid of a family. Oh, by the way, let me just introduce speaking of my family. This is my brother right here, Robert Hopper. You know, I was a kid in a family whose parents hadn't gone to college. And so I was a first-generation college student. And it had been my goal to go to college and then to go on to law school. And I wanted to figure out how I could somehow do that myself. And I came kicking and screaming into the Miss America organization because I had decided that I was going to be involved in politics. And when I went to school, I was working with Diane Blair, it means Diane Blair and Skip Rutherfords of the world and others, because I was going to be in politics. And I had gone to the university and joined a sorority, not really understanding what that meant. But my mother said to me, and Stephanie and I are sisters in Zeta, my mother said to me, I'm not exactly sure what this means for you to be a Zeta, but just don't screw it up, because, you know, we don't fail at things. And so they had come to me because I didn't go to the functions and I wasn't much of a partier, and, you know, I just kind of wanted to work and run political campaigns and go out and put, you know, flyers on doors and do phone calls for get out the vote. And they came to me and said, you know what, if you will be our representative in the Miss University of Arkansas pageant, we won't kick you out. And I'm like, what? No way. So I called my mother and she's like, that's a really bad idea. Some friends that we knew at that point, last name by the name Clinton, thought that was even a worse idea, but decided that this was something that I would go ahead and do, and entered and won by a fluke. And the fluke was, I didn't know the system, and I showed up being who I was, because I didn't know anything any better. And the judges afterwards said to me, well, now, you know, when you go to Hot Springs for Miss Arkansas, I said, what are you talking about? I'm not done? And they said, no, when you go to Hot Springs to Miss Arkansas, you just keep doing what you're doing, and you're going to be fine. And so fast forward all these number of years, and I am fortunate enough to be lending a voice to what is Miss America 2.0. You know, I do want to stop, and I know that Skip said something about Donna, but I do want to just stop for a minute and say that Donna Axum Whitworth represented everything that was right about Miss America. She was smart, really wicked smart. She was kind. She was giving and generous. She was dead set determined on making a difference. She made a difference on the societies that she was in. And when you pull together that entire package of who Donna was and what she represented, that package, those attributes and those qualities, that's what made her beautiful. And so people today will say, oh, well, Miss America is no longer about being beautiful. Yeah, it is. It's all about being beautiful. But it's being beautiful because you're smart, and you're talented, and you're giving, and you're kind, and you want to make a difference. And you see the world not as something that you take from, but something that you give to. And Miss America 2.0 may be a reboot of a system, but Donna Axum helped lay the groundwork for what Miss America should be. And she exemplified that every single day of her life. You know, she would call all the Miss Arkansas, Maggie knows, and she would say, you know, I'm here for you, anything I can do. And then she'd do the same thing with Miss America. Because every Miss America travels about 28,000 miles a month. She carries 2 suitcases with her, and she's most of the time by herself. And she's representative of an iconic brand that, frankly, had lost its relevancy. So, to me, I told Skip and Nikolai and others, I was like, are you sure you want to do this the night before the election? Because everybody's going to be wanting to get out and, you know, again, get out the vote and doing all the things you do the night before an election. And they're like, yeah, some people will show up. But it hit me that the night before the election is actually probably the most appropriate time to talk about Miss America 2.0 because elections are all about change. And Miss America right now is all about change. And elections are about struggles for power bases. And Miss America right now is all about struggles for power bases. And elections are all about governance and the way in which that you can move constituencies, a variety of constituencies around on the chess table. And Miss America right now is about moving a variety of constituencies around on the chess table. But for good or for bad, Miss America will be 100 years old. 2 years. And back in 1983, when I began competing in Miss America, there were 83,000 young women, 83,000, who on the local level would enter their local pageants and then go up through the system to try to be Miss America. You know how many young women were competing to be Miss America in January of 2018? 4,000. So if General Motors had been building a car and they were selling 80,000 of these in a state, and all of a sudden over the course of several years they went to 4,000, they would either get rid of the car or reboot it. Now, what we know, having looked at Miss America over the course of the last several years, this just didn't start in January. As a matter of fact, I'm a former member of the former board, and we were having some of these conversations at that time. But Miss America has close to 100% name recognition. I've tried this, by the way. Try it sometime. It's fun. Go out into New York Times Square and go, Miss America! Everybody looks. Everybody. You can stop a crowd in New York City by screaming Miss America. Where? Where is she? But if you ask that same group of people, what does Miss America do? Or ask in the alternative, what does Miss America stand for? Most of the time they'll say, is that Trump's thing? Yep. And you'll say, no, actually, Miss America is a nonprofit. And they're like, oh, I don't know what that means. And you'll say, well, what does Miss America do? I say, well, she's pretty. That's a problem. Not that Miss America's pretty. Don't edit that because I'll get social media like all over the place. Thank you. Not that Miss America isn't pretty. It's the fact that no one can describe what Miss America is about. So we were very fortunate in January of this year when the former board left. Gretchen Carlson, who was a former Miss America, was asked to come in and be the chair of the new board, to create a new board out of whole cloth and begin to write the governance, write the operational structure, begin understanding the finances, trying to figure out how to deal with all the constituency bases, which consists of local competition directors, state competition directors, sponsors, those people who have made their own personal power bases out of different elements of the competition, and boy, do they scream loud. I bet y'all have heard them. And trying to figure out how you take that big pot of soup and put it together in a way that Miss America becomes relevant again. There were no corporate sponsors of Miss America when we walked in the door. Back when I was Miss Arkansas, we had General Motors, Kellogg's, Clairol, Campbell Soup, L'Oreal, I'm missing some. All of those corporations served as the foundational fiscal base for Miss America. Now there are none. And so what you do is you say, why is that? If everybody thinks Miss America is so great, then why don't they want to support it? And we had to break that down. And we had to take the assets that Miss America had and try to make them something then that people would want to support financially as well as through the volunteer base. So we know the time that we're in, it's kind of the time of girl power. I'm not going to say me too, I just said it. Because everybody who hates what's happening right now blames it on Me Too. I can tell you this has nothing to do with Me Too. But it does have a lot to do with the fact that brands these days, almost every brand these days exists for a purpose. They take a position. We sat down with a company that all of you all know well, Johnson & Johnson. And they were very interested in what was going on with Miss America. And they said, you know, we just finished a multi-year mission and vision review. And we determined that Johnson & Johnson wasn't about the product. It was about the purpose of the company behind the product. So no longer are brands about just the widget or the service or the thing that they sell. The brands are about what the purpose is around the service or the widget or the thing that they sell. But Miss America was not. So we had to figure out where we were going to go. We knew that we were in a time of societal change. By the way, do you know how Miss America started? Miss America started in 1921 as a bathing suit review. Isn't that funny? 1921, a bathing suit review on the boardwalk of Atlantic City, because a bunch of businesses at the time came together and said, we are losing business after Labor Day, so how can we extend our Labor Day business out? And they came up with Miss America. And about 8 young women from Philadelphia and Washington and Chicago all came to Atlantic City, and there was Miss America. But it was a disruptor from the beginning, because you didn't wear in 1921 a bathing suit and parade around on the boardwalk. And those women said, you know, this is the way in which that I can advance. So you go forward all these years. Miss America started as a bathing suit review, disruptor. It added talent, disruptive. It added a platform on a societal statement, disruptive. Miss America said it should be about women being able to have an education, disruptive. And then all these years later, at almost its 100th anniversary, you're saying, well, do young women have to be judged on their physical appearance to get a scholarship? And the more research we did and the more people we talked to, most people said no, because young women have other opportunities. So what should Miss America really be about? So we knew we were in a time of societal change, but we knew that the purpose of Miss America, educational advancement through scholarship and making a difference in society, its original purposes, were still in tune with what America wanted. So we began doing research, and Miss America is a job. Again, Miss America travels, she represents a brand, she gets paid a salary, she's an employee under contract. So we said if we could tell people what Miss America's job actually is and make the competition about that job, it will help people understand. So our contestants went from candidates, there she is, Miss America, there she is, your ideal. Whose ideal? Why can't the young women who are coming through tell why it's their ideal? It's no longer about how you should look. So in the system, it's been a lot about you wear this color, you wear that kind of bathing suit, you wear this kind of dress, you wear your hair a certain way, you wear makeup this way, or you don't. This year's Miss America was told she would never be Miss America. She can't win. You're more than welcome to compete, but you'll never be Miss America because you're a black opera singer, and that just doesn't happen. And by the way, young women of color don't wear white. And she's like, all righty then, let's see what Miss America 2.0 is all about. She literally jumped in at the last minute after the announcements. She's Miss America, the girl who was told she couldn't be Miss America. Pageant girls, now we know the South. As a matter of fact, I was just having a conversation with a woman in Texas, and she said, you know, you're really making people mad in Texas because we love pageant girls. And I said, you know what, it's okay to be a pageant girl, but why can't that pageant girl say why she's doing it? So pageant girls became empowered women, and no longer judging on physical appearance, but really looking at inclusivity and diversity. Making sure that the beauty is found in all those things we started talking about with Donna. That's Miss America. We did a really good job on the first part of this mission statement for years, preparing great women for the world, giving women scholarships, giving women an education, allowing them to be a part of a process for them to develop. But we did a really bad job on the second half. Preparing great women for the world, giving them opportunity, but preparing the world for great women, that's a whole nother mission. And so part of what we wanted to do was make sure that the vision of Miss America's was relatable. So I'll just stop and let you read it. There she is, Miss Neurosurgeon, Miss Social Activist, Miss Jet Pilot, Miss Investigative Journalist, Miss Expert Coder, Miss CEO. It could also be Miss Minister, Miss Mom, Miss whatever she wants to be. And yes, she's beautiful. Beautiful in the way that she's smart, principled, and passionate. Stunning in how she leads, commands a room, and makes an impact. And striking in her genuineness, her fearlessness, and the ability to take her influence and use it to impact the world. Never guided by what society deems she should do, but forever driven by what she can do. She has the confidence and the skills, and she's empowered to make it happen. There she is, Miss America. No wonder she has a crown. She rules. Biggest question we got during the revisioning is, will Miss America still have a crown? And it was fascinating, the number of people who considered themselves pageant haters who said, oh, she has to have a crown. You're not going to get rid of the crown. Now, we went through that whole social media haze of, yeah, let's see, she's going to get a medal. We went through it all. But you see here that what we were trying to do with the vision was to marry the very fundamental important elements of the past with where we are as a society for the future, and allowing Miss America to still be the one who represents the brand, but let her actions rule on that brand. So we put together a new competition. We went from that to that. That was 2017. That was 2018. So no longer a swimsuit competition, but a way in which for the judges and the audience to actually know who this young woman was, why she wants the job, why she feels it's important for her to be there. You see there are elements of competition still there, but the judges this year, this was our celebrity set of judges, and they were scared to death. They kept saying, but this is the first Miss America under a new system. And in picking the judges this year, it was interesting because they had to talk. It's easy to get a group of celebrity judges who can just like mark down points and like throw them over the transom. This group, they had to talk on live television and they had to come up with their own questions. They weren't written for them. Writers in the past have always written questions. There were no writers. They were the writers. And they got to ask the question they wanted of a young woman. And so in this picture, Nia Franklin, who ended up being Miss America, was being asked a question. And you see it was very interactive. They got to know who she was. And in talking with the judges afterwards, it was really interesting because they said, we actually could figure out who we thought should be Miss America. The world's watching. How many people in this room have seen the social media about me? Oh, Lord God. It's been something, hasn't it? I said, I think I actually know now what it's like to run for political office. I am not doing that. And I can say, too, for all of you who are wondering, Gretchen's not either, despite what they report in the paper. She has no ambition to run for office. But we know the world is watching. But this is what Vanity Fair wrote. Again, Miss America being a reflection of the culture. Miss Michigan decided to speak out on the Flint water crisis. And she said in doing so, she knew that more than likely that it was going to create controversy, and it did. But in fact, had they not used the word pageant, this would have been a perfect quote. But after months of promising a brand new face, the competition allowed the candidates to speak more for themselves, and people paid attention. This was the polling that we did through Morning Consult of getting rid of swimsuit, pre-show, 55% of those supporting. You see the demographic men and women breakdown, Republican, Democrat breakdown, which was interesting. And the social sentiment after was 1 million. Look at this, 8 million impressions on Instagram alone in one day. This was the day of the broadcast. The Snap story that we did backstage, basically allowing all of the candidates to talk, never happened before. As a matter of fact, Miss America, you weren't allowed to have your phone prior to this year. Your phone got taken away from you. This year, you got to post what you wanted to post. You got to talk about what you wanted to talk about. This year, we had Snap come in and backstage, 4 million people watched that. That's more people than watched the broadcast. ABC, by the way, was like, whoa, really? That's interesting. And we were top 10 in social content ratings. So here's Miss America. It is one of the largest providers of scholarships to women in the country and in the world. These are the things that we feel like is important about the Miss America system. Why Miss America? Our audience base goes from 8 to 80. We hit every single demographic. We're always the #1 show on television for women every year. And our audience is around the $100,000 mark, which is a very affluent audience for television. So they love Miss America on TV. And I started here, but I'll go back and I'll end here, which is the grassroots network of candidates and volunteers is what makes this organization so strong. It is what sustains it. And right now in this time of enormous change for Miss America, but enormous change for the country, Miss America has really been an incubator outside of the political system for how we have discourse. And I'm just going to tell you, and it is a little bit based on my own personal bias because I was the subject of a lot of it, it's not good. We've got to learn in this country how to have a discourse if we're going to use social media in a way that's both factually based, but also isn't just vicious. To give you an idea, we had extra security at Miss America this year because we had death threats. We couldn't sit in the audience during the show because we had death threats. If Miss America serves as anything, it should serve as the leader, the voice of what's good in the country. And if we've learned anything over the last 8 months about change and how difficult it is to change and how hard it is to accept that change, that whether you agree or disagree, that to have a civil discourse around the change is much more important than creating fear. And as we go now, and I'm going to switch to the political, this is why I think it's important. As we now move into tomorrow's elections, we're seeing the same thing play out on the political stage that played out here. Utilization of issues to maintain power bases. Utilizations of facts that are twisted and manipulated. And I'm not picking on one side or the other. I'm just saying, we as a civil society, if Miss America can be an example outside of the political system of any of it, step back and ask the questions. I've had several people who have come up to me who disagree with the way in which the organization is moving forward. And they'll say to me, well, you know, you're terrible, you're awful, you're mean, you're rude, you're whatever. And then we're done. And I'll say, well, what is the problem? Well, you shouldn't have gotten rid of Swimsuit. Okay, why? That's a much easier conversation to have than a hate-filled conversation. So, you know, Gretchen and I both, I can't tell you it's been an easy year. It's not, you know. I'll pick up the phone and I'll call Judy. But it hasn't been an easy year, but we'll pick up the phone and we'll say, why are we doing this? It's not because we're getting paid anything to do it. We're getting paid nothing to do it. It's because it was a system that gave us the ability to do things we wanted to do. It was a system that had men and women alike who would stand up, stand in the rain, do a parade, help you pick out clothes, practice your interview, do your talent whether you had one or not, take you to Atlantic City, and be there for you, whether you won or not. It was a system where the power base wasn't about the individuals who had power, but about the young women who wanted to be able to go on and do things and create their own power later. And that's what Miss America still is. So I'm really hoping that what we've learned over the last 8 months is that I now look at media in a different way. I can't tell you how many times I've picked a phone and go, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, 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 and wrong. So if all that's wrong in that article, how is it that I can go on and then trust another article? Well, that was a good exercise. Because then I look at it and I go, well, I wonder if that's right. Let me go check that out. No wonder she has a crown, she rules. The iconic Miss America's first picture has for years been running in the waves of Atlantic City. Started in Atlantic City, is in Atlantic City. You run through the waves in Atlantic City after you win. Well, guess what? We did that picture. Everybody's like, oh, they're not going to do that picture. Oh, yeah, we did it. But what we decided to do this year was because Miss America really is about believing in the importance of education and scholarship. It's about making sure that these young women are real and giving young women and young men a role model other than like the Kardashians. They're relatable, they're attainable, and they make an impact. And so NIA's, like I said, her social impact initiative is about bringing the arts to, in particular, disadvantaged youth. She worked with a group in New York called Sing for Hope. They would take pianos and other musical instruments into Harlem and other areas of New York City. And she had 13 and 14-year-olds who never had seen a piano, much less played one. And so that's what she's doing this year. And that's her quote. So that's Miss America. And those are how the decisions were made, how we got here, who these people were, how lovely some people were, how really mean others were. And most importantly, that Miss America continues to reflect the culture of our society, the good of what we can all be, and help us identify those things that maybe aren't so good, and then fix them. So with that, I will stop and see if there's any questions that any of you have in the audience about any of this.
Well, let's thank Regina, first of all. And as Stephanie can tell you, and as I can tell you, and now Judy can tell you, she is as honest on this stage tonight as she has been her entire life. And very few speakers come to the Clinton School and take an issue right head on and deal with it. Thank you for doing it. Okay, let's throw it open for questions.
Stephanie, I knew it.
You're shocked.
I just knew it.
No, I'm interested in the scholarship component, and frankly, I was quite surprised to hear that there were no corporate sponsors. How do you build up the scholarship funds, or how does that work so that obviously, the scholarship starts at the local level and people win all the way up through the state, and then the generous gifts that they get, the top 5. Where's the funds, how are those funds generated for the scholarships up here, but also all the way down the line?
It's a good question. So there are actually 2 organizations with Miss America. One is the Miss America organization, and that is the C4 that runs the competitions. That's all it does. That's what it does. And then it executes on the 365. Then there's the Miss America Foundation. That's the C3. That's where the scholarships monies are held. I won't bore you with all the legalities of why can't a C3 do it at the national level, because IRS just, sucks. That's all. But on that level anyway. But Children's Miracle Network Hospitals is the national platform for Miss America. She has her individual platform, but it is the fundraising of that helps fund some of our scholarships. That all goes to the foundation. There are many scholarships for military service, musical talent, doctors, lawyers, et cetera, that are all endowed scholarships that exist in the C3 that we give. But the stage scholarships, if you're Miss America or first runner-up or second runner-up on the national level, those can't come out of the C4, they have to come out of the C3. So those scholarships are funded different than operations. What I was talking about was that Miss America as an organization had all of these corporate partnerships, because for the most part what Miss America used to do was that these corporations found Miss America so important that they would bring her into their corporate structures to talk about what her job is, how she prepared for it. They would interview her for young kids her age to say, we want to start recruiting from this pool, tell us how to do that. And all of that fell off because the relevancy of Miss America fell off. So that's the distinction. So we did have, actually, and I'm glad you asked the question, when we made the elimination of swimsuit announcement, Gretchen and I both, when we had served on the board before, had been to several companies, all of them, some of which we knew, and even in this state, who took the meetings because they were lovely, but they didn't want to support a pageant. And there are several companies actually who have it in their charters. We don't support pageants. But as soon as we made the swimsuit announcement, we had Fortune 500 companies calling us for the first time in years. And the thing that made me so mad, mad, was that when the controversy started, we had it nailed down. We had a little over $1 million, most of which were in new scholarships. I'm watching you so I don't get myself in trouble. Judy is my attorney, by the way, y'all. This is Judy Henry. She's also my friend. She just happens to be my attorney, too. But because of the controversy that was stoked by a very vocal and mean constituencies, we lost them all. We had new scholarships for Miss America, and every single young woman who was going to walk on that stage was going to get more money this year. All of that money was going to those young women, and we lost it. So we wanted to use the show as a proof point to show that Miss America actually could look different. And then secondarily, the new Miss America to say this will be her job. And now they're starting to call back again, so do this, right? Because they're seeing that in fact, the organization can have a purpose and we can execute.
So this is great, and this is eye-opening, and I thought, being from Russellville, I knew a lot about pageants, but clearly about Miss America, I did not. And seeing this new language and your messaging and hearing about, again, what Miss America is, how are you getting that message out more broadly so that all these corporate sponsors do want to be engaged, so other people that have access to scholarships and funds and programs and helping lift this brand, how are you doing that? What's the strategy for getting the word out beyond the grassroots of you having to go speak all over the country?
Well, I'm speaking all over the country. That's part of it. Gretchen's doing that as well. Those who are supportive of the program are doing it. We push people out. Miss America herself is a big supporter of the way in which the program's moving more forward. So she literally has been very vocal. And then those who have competed in the program that actually support this, they're doing it. We have signed some new sponsors. So American Airlines is now flying Miss America. It's the first time that American Airlines has been affiliated with Miss America, and so we're very proud of that. We're going to make an announcement next week of another new transportation provider. I'll let you guess who that might be. Who now wants to be affiliated because they see themselves as helping drive Miss America into advocacy discussions. And then we have a few others that we hope to be able to bring out soon. But, it's like everything, right? You get one and the others kind of follow, but it's getting that first one that, so I'm headed on the road tomorrow to talk to a few more. But, if you know of people who are supportive of young women getting an education, and also making an impact, whether it be Maggie, who was an amazing Miss Arkansas, and going out and doing what she did, to the young woman who represents her college or her university or her festival or whatever it is, to Miss America herself. Those are the type of people that we hope to bring in. Yeah.
Questions? Yes, sir. There's a microphone right behind you.
You talked about revitalizing, rebuilding a board. I was just thinking if you could give any kind of advice to somebody who's working with a nonprofit and how they would go about doing that.
So when the old board all went away at one time, which hardly ever happens, but happened in this instance, we all felt that it was really important to have the internal constituencies represented, because we knew that the position that Miss America was in, that those who were closest to it needed to have a voice, and then it needed to be broadened. So we began by putting representatives on the board of the constituencies, and we allowed those constituencies to pick their own representatives, which had never been done in the Miss America system before, ever. States had never been involved. Former title holders had never been involved. As a matter of fact, most of the time they were told, I don't care. You go over there. At that point, then, we started broadening out to external, those who knew little to nothing about the system, to where we could do like what Stephanie was saying. We wanted to be able to educate people, to make them understand what the program was, and then make them a fiduciary to where they could help blast it out. Now we're in tranche number 3, and we're getting ready in tranche number 3 to add those people who can be supportive on a financial perspective, that have the assets and have the associations and the contacts to where they can start introducing and doing what Stephanie just said, which was trying to push it out to a broader audience. So the thing that all that advice boils down to, you have to appreciate people who know the system or the business or the industry or whatever, and then you have to have people who are willing to broaden it out, to listen to other voices as well. This was the thing that I found so fascinating. 2 things. When we announced the elimination of Swimsuit, the outside audience, I'm talking about nobody who was involved in Miss America at all, 98% thought it was great, if they paid attention to it at all. Our biggest fear was that nobody would pay attention to it. Because without paying attention to it, we weren't being able to communicate. We wanted it to be relevant now. Those internal, they were really vocally against it. So we had to balance the external with the internal. And, you know, I like to say this, having worked in both in politics but also in public policy advocacy through nonprofit trade associations, reorganizations usually happen, if you're lucky, in 48 months, usually 72 or more. We had to do this in 4 months. And so a lot of the things that you would typically do to try to make it better and communicate it out better, we tried. So probably if you could say what was your biggest failure in all of it, it would be the lack of the ability to communicate more about what those changes were and what they actually meant. So that's my advice.
Mr. Patrick, got a question right there.
Hi there, I'm Patrick McBride.
Hi.
I'm a second-year student here at the school, and so the change to focus on giving the women in this program a platform, I think, is incredibly important, especially where we are right now as a society. And I like that the focus for the competition is moving towards diversity and inclusion. With that being said, wanting to be inclusive and being representative of all women, how is the organization going about supporting transgender women participating at the state and national level?
Well, actually, the only rule that's in place says that you certify that you are female. That's it. So you can take it from there. The questions have been raised any number of times. We have talked about young women who are gay and straight, young women who have tattoos and don't, young women who might be a little bit not, completely perfect all the way around, and those who aren't. What I found interesting this year was that like I think I said this, our top 5 was the most diverse, but they also were the most body diverse and the most talented diverse, which I found fascinating. I mean, smart. Like the first runner-up, well, I've talked about Nia, the first runner-up is a STEM scientist. The second runner-up was, you guys helped me, one of them was a neuroscientist from Harvard. And she actually said to me during orientation, she came up to me. And the other thing I love too is the African American women this year felt like they really could come in the way that with their hair, the way that they wanted to naturally wear it, as opposed to being told, oh, in a pageant, it has to always be straight. Now, Nia's just was because she wanted to. But I remember one of them, Miss Colorado, saying, nothing's going to happen with me here. She said, I'm what you get. She did pretty well. She did very well. Yeah, we were very proud.
One more question. There we go, the Prince of Pork right here.
I've always thought that getting to be Miss America was almost like winning the lottery. If you're a little girl growing up in small town Arkansas and the chances of doing all that and winning, like a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
y'all are talking about wanting more diversity and everything out there. You know, we have another competition in America. It's called football. At the end of every year, the sports writers all gather and name their All-American team. 33 on offense, 33 on defense. 66 guys can run around the country saying that they're All-Americans. Have you ever considered, you know, that's a big job for one gal for 365 days a year to try to get to all 50 states, and if we're lucky in Arkansas, we'll get her at a couple of events in Little Rock or Northwest Arkansas, and then she's on her way.
It's a great idea.
Why don't you name 10 Miss Americas and make them all Miss America and have them a mix of that diversity you're talking about, and get them all out there and make a bigger platform for Miss America if you're going to sell this program.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that. There is a very large production company in Los Angeles, California, who asked us the very same question. Why is it that you have to have just one winner? Now, I'm just going to tell you, my guess is that if we had said this year we were going to have 10 Miss Americas, I'd be dead. That having been said, utilizing the full assets of the young women that we have in this program, and I've said this before, this program has tended to focus on the one young woman who wins when 50 go home. You know, I was one of those 50. I like to think that the things that I've been able to do with my life, because of my experiences in Miss America, are helpful to this organization. So this year, we actually started what we called State Title Holders Group, and you may have seen a couple of them that were featured on the show this year talking about what they did with their money and how they have achieved. And unfortunately, ABC dropped a couple of them for time. But it is a great idea to, I'm not so sure we can have 10 Miss Americas, unless you want to be the CEO.
I trust you.
But it is a good thing to use more of our assets, no doubt. Yeah.
Okay, I know there are more questions, so please, when we get through, please come up and visit with Regina. But again, welcome home.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Congratulations on a big job and a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of the Miss America organization, Regina Hopper.